Hi, Eric Gibaud, Gibaud.com, and today I'm going to answer 10 questions I've received from subscribers of my channel, and this way I may help them and also maybe help you. So let's start. I just wanted to say that I received, I think, 43 questions, and the community part of my channel, and I cannot answer all of them in this video, so I'll make several videos, or some actually deserve a specific video for the subject they actually speak about. And so you can still send a question there if you want, or we'll see. But I'll answer the one I thought that was the most important right now. So the first question is Mr. Geek. This is not a help question, this is a curiosity question. He wants to know what kind of picture I like most. Well, actually, I cannot say I've got some preferences. Strangely, there are the pictures I make and the picture I watch, and they're not always the same. Normally, they're not the same. For example, I don't do macro of insects, but why? Because I don't do it. But I really like to see that kind of pictures, or there are things I don't do because maybe they bore me. For example, doing a picture of a painting, I think technically it's interesting to light it with that reflection. All this is technically interesting, but once you've done it, you've done all of them. Well, maybe every time is a bit different, but that kind of repetitive work, I don't see it really interesting for me, you know. And there are other things similar that I don't really like body painting. I don't like it. If a makeup artist contracts me to make a reportage of what he's doing, his work, how he paints, all this, and the final results, yes, that's interesting. But having a girl, a boy, fully painted, make pictures, 10 pictures or 50 pictures of that person, for me, it's not something I really like, honestly. I don't really, it bores me, you know. So it's not really what kind of picture I prefer, but maybe I think there are some time I do more one thing, and another time I do more something else, but I don't have a favorite kind of picture, I think. I think in every style there are things I really like. When I look at it, like sport photography, I don't do sport photography, but when you see a boxer that is fighting like this, or someone's jumping and you see the efforts, all this, I like to see this picture, although I don't do that kind of pictures. The third question is from Bernabe Cabrera Escol, and he's asking how you can test a lens at home without having specific material, specific gear to do it. Well, you actually need a tripod and a newspaper. So you actually use the central double page of the newspaper, like this, if it was a newspaper, and you take it, you stick it on the wall, properly level, everything. And then you put your tripod about 1 meter, 2 meters away, depends what kind of lens, focal length you're going to test. And then the camera must be perfectly perpendicular to the wall, and properly level everything, no? And this way, everything. So it's really okay. It's square. So otherwise you will get some not the reality, because some side it would be, if it was sideways, maybe you will lose focus, all this. And then you're going to make a picture at each different aperture. If it's a lens 1.4, well, 1.4, 2, 2.8, 5.6, 8, 11, 16, all this. And if you actually, so it's important that you work in manual, and every time you close one aperture, one stop, you open one stop of speed. So this way everything will be exposed the same way, no? And if you're actually using a zoom lens and you want to do like 24-70, and you want to test at 24, 28, 35, 50, 70, then just to quickly at one glance see that it's a different focal length, you just make a picture of your hand in front of the camera, and when you look at your set of picture, you know, oh, I changed here, so it's easy to remember. You could also look at the EXIF, but it's faster to have a visual like this. And then you check the Sari in your computer in Lightroom, and you look at the center, the borders, if it's sharp, not sharp, all this. You look at all this, but it's not just sharpness. Also, if you see some fringing on letters, all this, strange effects, all this, artifact, all this. But really, it depends what you look in a lens. It's not because it's not the best, the sharpest lens at 1.4 that it will be a problem for you. Maybe you want to use it at f8, so it doesn't matter. So it all depends what it is for. But this way, you can check sharpness easily on your lens. The fourth question, Martin Hernandez is asking if there is a camera that gives you an aperture dial, speed dial, and also ISO dial, and no screen. Yes, there is. Leica M10D that costs about 8,000 euros, about 9,000 US dollars. But also there's things like the Fujifilm XproO 3. I made the review recently, and it's actually, the screen is not visible unless you open it. But still, you can also, if you use a camera that has a screen that you can flip it back, and you don't see it at any time. So this is the answer. Yes, there are, but they're quite expensive. Well, depends. The Fujifilm is more payable, but there is some kind of screen. But with no screen, I think the Leica M10D. That's it. Question number 5 by Ivan Alamo Bolaños. He asks me what if I still recommend the Lumix FZ300. Well, normally I was not going to answer specific camera question type, but I made this review many years ago, so well, a few years ago, and I think it's okay to update my opinion. Yes, I still recommend that camera because it's still, bridge cameras have not bettered that much. Well, zoom wise, like the Nikon P1000, yes, but the rest is very similar. It doesn't change that much during these years. So you have 4K in this camera, you have a microphone connector, you have a zoom that is 24-600 optical. It's true that some cameras do more, but I think it's enough. But also it's 2.8 aperture on the full zoom, so I think it's a great camera. Obviously, yes, I still recommend it. I leave you the review I made then. I've got no BS in this review, I think. And by the way, this camera, you can find it called FZ300, also FZ330. They are the same cameras. Okay. Sixth question by Lorenzo Caro Amado. His question is if he's in a church that is quite dark and there's a small window, how can you get the exposition okay on both, to have the highlight in the window that are not burnt, that's okay, and the indoor of the church okay too? Well, it depends. First, if there is too much difference, it's simply impossible to get everything properly exposed. You cannot get this window and then the indoor of the church okay. So you have to make a decision. What's important, the window or the church? And then you decide what's okay for you. But I understand that in case you cannot do anything, then just what you have in your hand. Second option, if I think you're speaking about wedding or I don't know, any communion or whatever, well, the possibility is to expose properly for the window and then to light the church with flash. But obviously it's very hard to light the whole church, so I think it's speaking about a person in there, the bride and the groom, and then you light them with a flash and get proper exposure for the window. Other option, if it's not people in there and no one is going to move, you can do an HDR. It means you make 2 or 3 pictures, one exposed for the window and one exposed for the church, and then in Photoshop you get them together to keep the proper exposure on the window and proper exposure on the church. But there are no simple solution if you don't or make 2 pictures or use external lighting for the church. There's no other solution. The question number 7 by Joan Anthony Moncayo goes really well with question 6, because he's asking if it's possible to do a good HDR picture with only 2 pictures. Well, first, HDR, I speak about a high dynamic range. I'm not speaking about tone mapping with these crazy colors, all this. I do speak to have a better exposure on a higher range. So, take into account that when you make a picture, if you go +3 stops or -3 stops, you will get burnt or really dark, and you don't have details in the shadows or no details in the highlights. So this is a 6 range you have. So it means that actually, if you do want to get more at the bottom or more at the top, you need to make several pictures and then you get them together in your computer. No? So if you miss just a bit, maybe with 2 pictures you cover the range you actually need. But normally I always recommend to make between 3 and 5 pictures to always get the maximum details in every area and don't have to get back shadows or pull down highlights. You have each area is properly exposed. I think the minimum is 3 to 5 pictures, I think, and to get a proper exposure for your HDR. But yes, it is possible to do a HDR with only 2 pictures if the situation accepts it. It all depends on the light. Question number 8 by Mis Obsesiones is asking, it says that not everyone needs maximum sharpness, but what do you do if you want maximum sharpness? Well, I'm speaking about with the lens you have. Obviously, there are some lenses that are sharper than others, but with the lens you have. First, the first reason to have unsharp images is because you move. So even if you have a stabilizer, the best way to have perfect maximum sharpness at the aperture you have is using a tripod and not touching the camera to remote trigger the camera, whether with a cable, your telephone or whatever, and you don't touch the camera or delay the trigger, okay? And second reason is you should not use your lens at maximum aperture because you don't have the maximum sharpness there. Most lenses that have maximum sharpness at around f8. If you close more than this, you get diffraction, and under this, you don't have maximum sharpness. So the answer is simple. If with the lens you have, you need the maximum sharpness, use a tripod, don't touch the camera, and work at around f8. Well, you can check, but around f8 is where you have the maximum sharpness normally. Some lenses f11, some 5.6, but normally f8. The 9th question by Cindy Martinez is asking, how can you do portrait with a 21mm lens? He does state that he knows that 21mm is not the ideal focal length for portrait. Well, the thing is, people, when they think about portrait, they think about close-up. Portrait could be a full body also, you know. But if you're going to do a close-up, the problem is that to fill the frame, you're going to get really close, so like this. If you look like this, my nose is enormous compared to my ears, when actually your nose is the same size as your ears. So normally, more or less, okay? Dumbo is a bit different, but normally human have this something similar. So it means that the first thing would be to get a bit out, get full body, and important to get low on the picture, camera really low, because it's always better to have a pyramidal deformation than like this, you know, to have a big head and small feet. So you have to think something really creative anyway, because if you get closer, it's going to deform. The shape is going to be strange. So you do some kind of caricatural photography or extreme photography when you see the person with a head like this, but an expression that goes with it, you know, because if you try to do classical portrait with this, it's gonna look really wrong. So I think to look good, it's important that you use your imagination, try different framing, aggressive look, aggressive situation, and then that may work. But otherwise, it's quite difficult with 21mm. It also depends on what camera you're using it. 21mm on micro four thirds like 42, that's okay, it escape. On APS-Cs like 30mm more or less, that is really a bit wide angle now. And then if you use a full frame 21, is really a radical look. So it all depends on the camera you're using also. The last question is by Henry Soto. He asks if it's necessary to have the most expensive lens or expensive lenses to do portrait photography, or is it enough to learn about technique, framing, composition, all this? I think this is a great question because I see many people, especially people with APS-C camera who just started, they rush to buy a 50mm lens 1.8, very often by Yongnuo, and they just dazzle seeing the out of focus, the shallow depth of field, what they call bokeh very often instead of shallow depth of field. Bokeh doesn't need to have the shallowest depth of field to have bokeh anyway, so it's something else. But and they think that's it. With this, you have a great portrait. So someone who doesn't know about photography probably thinks oh, wow, that's great. Look at this, all blurred in the back, all this, it's amazing. But really, they forget one thing. The important thing in a portrait is the person that shows in the portrait. So the expression, the way it looks, all this, and you don't always need to have a shallow depth of field. So it means you don't always need to have a very expensive lens, or well, Yongnuo is not really expensive, but if you want quality, you don't need the most expensive lens, all this. It's better first you learn how to compose, how to frame, because let's say you want to make a picture of me here, it would be nice to have a shallow depth of field because behind is horrible. But let's say I'm in a library and I want to see some books behind me. It's better you learn how to frame, and that the book doesn't cut my ear here or there or whatever. It doesn't show bad, you know. It's better to learn how to compose, frame, all this, than to think just about I buy the most expensive portrait lens and this way I've got shallow depth of field and everything is solved. And no, having shallow depth of field is not enough to make a picture a good portrait. It's always better to start with a normal lens, learn how to frame, compose, capture the expression, communicate with the person. This is far more important than just having the most expensive lens, because people, when they say that, they only think about one thing, is shallow depth of field. And this is really fashion now, but I think it's a big mistake. I see many people that they don't know how to frame, they don't know how to compose, so they solve it blurring the rest. Okay, so that was my answer. Well, that were my 10 answers to this question. I hope you liked it. Don't worry if I did not answer your question. I will keep doing this from time to time. And if you think it may help other people, please share it on social networks. If you have not done yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, the small button down here, and also a small bell. If you click on the bell, you get notified when I upload a new video. My website, ericgibaud.com. And if you have any question, you can leave a comment below, send me an email to info@ericgibaud.com. Below, I also put links of my gear on Amazon, also links to other parts of my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Bye.